Today is the 5th day of the July-August 1985 7-day retreat. Maybe most of the questions that come up in meetings concern this attention, this awareness. So disregarding whether or not we have talked about awareness and attention before, let's start freshly. Keeping in mind that this is not a lecture on awareness. One listens differently if the mind is set to get information about something, because then a very highly specialized of the part of the brain is listening, where there can be interpretation, comparison with remembered data. But if one realizes from the outset, this is not a lecture, it is a looking into something together, then maybe the brain can be relieved of remembering what is already known, relieved of having to compare and to interpret and to evaluate, and in all of this relief, be quietly listening and looking at the same time. Working together on this thing. This person is not an imparter of information. I'm working on this myself. I don't know what I'm going to say. One of the questions that has come up is, at times there seems to be a moment of this awareness of no division, no me there. Can this awareness be there all the time? Another question that has come up is, as I'm sitting and listening or looking, when the wind is still, when there's not a sound, what am I to listen to? Or when the body-mind is in some state of tranquility or stability, what is there to look at? Then what do I do? And another question which runs deep with habit is, it seems to be a tremendous effort for me to be attentive or aware. Doesn't it take willpower to maintain this awareness? And a related question is, can one train oneself in awareness? Give effort to this training? And some people have said in meetings, I've become aware that what I thought was awareness wasn't awareness at all. It was gimmicky. So where's one going to start with all these questions? Maybe starting with what is happening right now, if one is listening carefully. Can't imitate it nearly as well as what it actually is. There's the listening. Listen. Is there simple listening? Or as one watches and listens not just to that, but to what goes on in the mind, is there an almost instantaneous labeling, putting words on what is actually being perceived? Maybe even have a visual image of it, saying this is the wind moving the branches and the leaves, and doesn't it sound marvelous? One can go on and on, become poetic about it, and then the description goes into the foreground of the mind and becomes important. And the actual perception fades. So does one realize, see that the description, poetic, prosaic, whatever, is not what is actually going on? That is a process of the brain based on one's memories and knowledge. And divides one as a listener and commentator from the actual happening of because if this commenting and labeling does not take place, is there just that? One attends carefully not just to what is heard, but to what is provided by the mind, the brain, and the feelings that are invoked by thoughts. Thoughts may be vague, feelings are very palpable, very feelable. One may say, no, it's not just what is there. There is some kind of a vague feeling inside, a thought feeling within. And looking at that sort of vague, because not clear, thought feeling inside, is it again this separate listener, this feeling that there is somebody here, in fact, who hears that? Feeling is, no matter what you say, this feeling is there. I am hearing it. So we can question, what is this I, this feeling of I am hearing it? There's no denying the fact that there is a body here with ears, brain, heart. I can't spend the rest of the time listing all what's here. And without that, there would be no hearing of that. If there was deafness, that wouldn't be heard. But we don't have to be concerned right now about a deaf person. All of us, as far as I'm aware, are not deaf. So there is hearing. But do you see that saying I am hearing, the hearing comes from me, this I, this me is something extra. That is a thought. And immediately clustering around this thought of me are all my past impressions, my knowledge, my judgments, which I've learned in the past, my reactions. Reacting to this as either being overwhelmingly beautiful or, well, so what? Or, I want to stick to my practice. This is a distraction. If one has, in fact, a practice of sticking to a word, a koan or something. Then this may be reacted to as a distraction. All of this is the me. The idea, I am hearing it, rather than just allowing there to be the listening. The language is tricky. Again, somebody could say, who is allowing that? So I say, I'm using this as an expression. Because I have no better one at the moment. But saying I am hearing it, that I is a contribution of the brain. And saying it over again, clustered around this feeling of I are my habitual, age-old or recently acquired reactions, judgments, knowledge. I may be so trained in trees, in what trees are, that I may want to figure out whether I'm hearing a deciduous tree or a, what are the others called? A conifer. Because the sounds would very likely be different, of needles rubbing against each other, or leaves. And that may be a challenge to my mind to figure out, which is not wrong and not right, but it, again, my knowledge and my identification with knowledge, because a challenge means if I come out identifying it, I feel good. I can be proud of myself. Or my friends, if they knew it, would admire me. Maybe I'll let them know. All of this, see, all of that makes that feeling of, I am sitting here, hearing that. And these thoughts and reactions are never intellectual only, because what goes on in the brain is intricately connected with what goes on throughout the organism. All of our glands, muscles, organs are interconnected with input in the brain. So one thought can trigger a feeling of elation or depression. So with the same simplicity of awareness that this can be heard if the other is silent, is quiet, out of commission, so to say. With the same simplicity of awareness can feelings and reactions, if they come up, as they come up, also be attended to, listened to, with the same kind of awareness, with the same kind of listening, attention, call it what you will. It is the same process. It's not one process toward the outside, one process toward the inside. It's the same awareness. And then, is there a reaction to all these reactions that one is becoming aware of, that have taken place, which also make for noise in the brain when one experiences it as lots of thoughts going on in the mind? If there's awareness of that, what happens? Is it simple awareness which doesn't meddle, doesn't interfere, which is passive in that respect, completely passive? Or does the thought process continue? I shouldn't react. I shouldn't have judgments. How can I get rid of all of this garbage? Why does it keep coming back? What can I do to calm it down? Can one be aware of the fact that this is the same kind of thinking process as what is being reacted against? It's just more of the same. All making for this feeling of me there as a judge, an evaluator, a doer, someone who is doing right, someone who is doing wrong. And as all of this judging and evaluating and judging, the judging is going on, there is no open perception of the wind in the trees, the birds. The mind has narrowed to this area where remembrance, reaction, judging takes place. So when one begins to wonder whether there can be perception or attention or awareness or listening, I'm using these words interchangeably. passively, without choice, with the judging mind calm, out of commission. In abeyance is another way of putting it. Because it's quite clear as one observes this time and time again, unless the mind is quiet, quietly listening, with no preconceived ideas of what it should be doing or should be hearing or should not be listening to. No preconceived ideas. Unless the mind is passively quiet, receptive, there can't be real awareness. Hearing or seeing, perceiving what actually is. Totally undistorted, unjudged. When we find that a thought comes up, I want to have that quiet mind. I've worked at it and paid for it for years. That's a thought, and that's not quietness. And does one also realize from having done this work, having observed, attended, that this mind of thinking and wanting cannot bring it about, can only make more noise and more confusion, more entanglements. We went through one, the judgment of the judgment of the judgment. Does the mind understand that in itself, as it is constituted, with its remembrances and its ingrained willpower, which is based on thought, motive, and goal, that cannot bring about this passive, choiceless awareness? That it needs to be quiet for that to come into being. And not made quiet through willpower, effort, with which we come to the next question, in which people say, I feel that I'm expending effort in trying to get there and trying to be attentive. How can it not be so? So let's look at this effort that one feels one is expending in trying to get or keep attention. Let us say the mind is caught up in a daydream, in a fantasy. There's no awareness. One is totally caught up in this. It's like real. What one is doing, the pleasure of it or the fear of it. And suddenly there is awareness of the fact that this is going on, that the mind is caught up in fantasy. One wakes up, as it were, from a daydream. It has happened to every one of us. There's nothing hypothetical. One becomes aware, there's a moment of attention, and one becomes aware that the mind was one doesn't know how long, living in a fantasy. Did one bring that moment of attention about by effort? Or was one sort of relaxed in that fantasy? Because the fantasy may have been about chopping trees with a lot of effort. But the moment of attention, please look at it for yourself and observe it during your sitting. When that attention dawns, had one expended effort? One wasn't even there. One wasn't even aware of what was going on. And then there's a moment of awareness. And isn't it now that the effort comes in wanting to keep that, wanting to make it last, or all the other stuff we've just been through, blaming oneself for, again, fantasizing, despairing over never going to get out of that. And the moment of attention is blown. There's an expression, I've blown it. It's gone. Because one is in a new fantasy, the fantasy of blaming oneself. Maybe not appropriate description to call it a fantasy, but it's a new thought process, continuation of the thought process. Because if one wonders whether this moment of attention can last, that's a small part of the brain belaboring an already memory, what's already a memory. The attention has become a memory. One has made a word out of it. I was attentive. One may think one still is, but one isn't. One is wondering whether this attention, which is now a thought, can last longer or forever. Can one wake up to the fact that that is going on? See it at a glance? And then want nothing, knowing that wanting is immediately another train of thought, which has nothing to do with attention. It may just be thinking about attention, and one can think about attention endlessly. This is what some people say. I realize what I thought was attention was just thinking about attention. Let us go to this question of when I'm listening and there's no sound. Doesn't happen very often, but sometimes it is. Or maybe one is focusing on what's happening inside. One has been through a turmoil of anger and that has abated. It's quiet. Just as there's no wind, it's all still inside and out. And then the question, what am I to listen to now? Which in itself is the operation of the brain. It's not attention. But apart from that, does one have an idea that attention has to have an object, something to be attended to in order to be attention? Listening has to have a sound in order to have something to listen to. In a limited sense, this is so. But the attention or awareness that we're speaking about here does not need any object. Whatever is there, that is there, heard, seen, felt for what it is. And when nothing is there, it's not the end of awareness. Awareness is not created and ends with some object. Awareness is a state of mind which is open, receptive, passive in the sense of not trying to do things about things, not trying to alter things in one's conventional drive to alter things, to find solutions. It is passively open. It is without motive. Not, I'm aware in order to experience something, so that something will come upon me. That's thought, which is connected with memory, training, conditioning. And that thought is quiet in this awareness that we're talking about, and not just talking about. It's a state of being in which the me, with its clustering of reactions, memories, knowledge, images of the past and images of what it will be in the future, in which all of that is quiet. If it comes up, it is seen for what it is. And then it doesn't need to go any further. If it goes further, there's no attention. The me and attention are mutually exclusive. When me is operating, then there is a channel of operation, very narrow channel. What I want to get for myself, or what I want to escape from. And the energies are channeled and divided up in that channel, in that channeling. And the attention is now focused on what one wants to get and on trying to get that. And one knows from one's own experience as well as looking around in the world that immense energies can be harnessed in these channels of wanting something and avoiding no difficulty, going through no hardship, avoiding no hardship, going through any difficulty to get what one wants. But it is a partial energy, which is, it has a motive and a goal. And the me is in there. We've described it thoroughly. But amazingly enough, in this channel too, awareness can suddenly dawn of what is happening, which is an amazing thing. One doesn't know where it's coming from, and maybe that is the wrong question altogether. Maybe it's coming from nowhere. That's again thought, distances, and time. So one is in this channel of pursuing a pleasure or escaping from displeasure. And there's a moment of attention. And then what? Will there just be attending to the whole momentum that has built up? Maybe this is where one feels there's effort, because the momentum seems to push one along that channel. One wants to continue with it, toward the pleasure or away from the displeasure. And just attending maybe is felt as an effort, because all the energies seem to want to go toward or away from. But one has been through this time and time again, and has not just pro forma wondered if there can really be awareness without self-center, not just given lip service to this, but really wonders about it. Because one realizes as long as there's self-center, there is going to be inevitable division, conflict in oneself and with others, ad infinitum, as it has been since time immemorial. If this is very clear to the mind, then at that moment of awareness, will one just passively be there with whatever is going on, whatever emotions have been aroused, fear or desire for pleasure, and look at it. Let it be so quiet, be so non-meddling, non-interfering, and yet aware that something one has never really seen in all its detail reveals itself, begins to unwrap. One may feel, I've got to get what I need at this moment. Maybe it's a certain stimulation that one has become very accustomed to, addicted to. Comes out of a state of depression or boredom, a state of feeling non-alive, dull, and one knows in the past this stimulation, whatever it is, through taking drinks, cigarettes, drugs, or visual stimulation, sex, movies, books, whatever. One knows from the past, this will give me a boost, this will make me feel alive again. So one goes ahead with it. Can one still attend? Is that possible? Really watch what goes on, not just let that run itself off blindly, unconsciously. Can one sort of follow along with it? Not suppress it, try to control it or cut it off, but observe it. What really happens, and also what happens afterwards once this whole incident of stimulation is over. To observe, to be there with the attention in the low that follows every high, the depression that follows the elation, the feeling of drainedness, washed outness. It's the same dullness and non-liveliness from which one started. And to observe that too, dispassionately, non-judgmentally. So one finds out, not just lives mechanically, over and over and over again in the same vein, in the same channel, but learns not from reading psychology books about it, by observing oneself in action. Observing the tremendous strain and drain on the body, brain, mind, through constantly seeking stimulation when one feels low, and then the after effect, and then the needing of more, because the body gets used to stimulation, to any level. The doses have to be increased. So that just from looking and being with the way one lives, a dropping of habits can happen effortlessly, out of understanding what habit does to the body-mind, how it wears it down, dulls it. Dulling is a good word. And the liveliness, the vitality that one craves is further and further removed through this dulling of the mind. And to be experimental with when the next low or depression, lack of vitality, that state, but everybody knows, I don't have to describe it. When that arrives, can one do something completely new? Not follow in the old track, but be with it. Be with it unconditionally. Unconditionally meaning not, I'll be with you if you go away. That's motive again and goal, and a very, very narrow channel. It's being with it because this is what's there at this moment, just as the wind in the trees and the gushing of this little river after a rain. It's so muddy right now. But as it keeps flowing, somehow or other it becomes clear. I don't know why, but it does. So can one sit with the mud, with the dullness? Doesn't mean to have to sit. I'm not exhorting people to sit with it. It can be taking a walk or lying down with it, whatever is the posture to watch it. Be with it. Be it. Be with it sounds so dualistic. Language always does that, but it's not meant to be that way. One is that at that moment. And can one be that without thrashing about for a fix of any kind? Not using the attention as a potential fix. It isn't. Attention is attention. And it is only attention when there is no motive in it. Then it expands and widens and is infinite space. and what has always been felt as dullness, to be run away from, to be drowned or boosted with stimulation, may unfold itself for, one will find out for what. Certainly, energies gather in this attention without motive. They cannot help but gathering. And when there's no division, no resistance to what is being felt, no thrashing about for escapes, none of that, just a quiet being that, then one may find it is totally empty, has no substance. It's nothing. And yet the attention and the energy of attention is there. Not looking for any object, for any new topic. Whatever comes up, comes up. Whatever disappears, disappears. One begins to think about it, one will wonder, well, what is all this passivity all about? But that's a thought. When there's the emptiness of self, then there's everything as it is, everything without being separate, divided. And then there is a lovingness and compassion. Which is not personal. Because what is the personal? It's just empty images. And the energy which is there because it is not divided and channeled and in conflict can act appropriately because the seeing is clear. And also seeing and hearing are not separate from each other. There's not the endless labeling going on. You may say, are you, by any chance, painting a new ideal picture of something to be attained? I'm not. If we all moved together in this, then this is what's there. By which I don't mean we always have to move together in this. I mean just during this past hour. It does not need any togetherness. As a matter of fact, in one's daily life, one has to do it by oneself, alone. No one can do it for one. That's the beauty of it. It needs no attachment to a system or to a personality. That needs to be seen for its narrowing effect. We will end here for today.